Welcome to episode 40 of the Thoughtful Banter podcast. In this episode, we discuss Threads, the Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk beef, and things relating to our Muslim ummah. If you enjoy this episode, please share it with one friend.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 40 of the Thoughtful Banter podcast. I am your host, Matthew, along here with my co-host, Hussein.
Yes, sir.
Episode 40, guys, is a crazy, it's privilege, and we can't do without the patrons who are supporting us from day one. Hussein, how about you shout the patrons this time? Give me a break.
Don't have them in front of me.
You don't have them in front of you?
No.
That's crazy. We're going to cut. You're fired.
All right, time to shout out the patrons. Thank you guys so much for your subscriptions, and you guys are the reason that this podcast is running right now because we've been able to upgrade our equipment based on the money that you guys are graciously giving. So first, we got Zero, Reza, Deadman, Ali, Ahmad, Latifa, Ali, Justin, and Muhammad. Unfortunately, we lost one of our greatest bankrollers, but inshallah, he come back.
We lost T-Jam,
T-Jam.
bro. T-Jam. Look at me right here. Let's work this out.
We need you.
Let's work this out. Whatever it takes. I got you.
All right, so start us off, brother.
We got a lot happening, guys. Thread, we got to talk about that.
Yes.
It's been released in the last couple days. Mark Zuckerberg says that over 70 million signups have occurred in the last couple days.
4 days, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. People seem to be loving it. And what is concerning to Elon Musk is that people are like literally deleting their Twitter accounts.
Are they actually?
Some people. I'm not saying everyone, but like people are deleting their Twitter accounts, or people are like noticeably like not using Twitter and hopping over to Thread. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk threatened Meta with a lawsuit, basically saying that, and he doesn't even have like, at least from what I've read, he doesn't even have evidence. But he's looking at the software. He's like, I basically believe that you guys have stolen trade secrets, and your software is basically stolen from Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So let me just say this. I don't know exactly. This is a product of a lot of things. So one, I use Twitter a lot. I'm an avid Twitter user. I follow a lot of fighting accounts, MMA, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, and then I also follow this like Jujutsu Kaisen, like manga leak account. Anyways, that's how I stay up to date. But there has definitely been a change. There was definitely a change in Twitter once Elon came over. He did something similar to like the TikTok thing with the For You and then the like your followers. So that was like one of the first thing he did, which in theory I guess is not a bad idea, but me personally, I don't like the execution of it. There's just a whole bunch of, I know, and like so on the following, the problem I guess is the following. I feel like I miss a lot of what people who I'm following are actually tweeting. That's one, and then two, like for example, if someone replies to a tweet of someone I don't follow in my following, a lot of times I'm not seeing that.
Yeah.
And on the For You, I'll see it, but I also see a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't want to see.
Yeah.
You know?
Ever since Musk has actually taken the reins, Twitter has lost 32 million users.
And then they did the whole, like, they took away people's verification badges, and now you just have to pay $8 a month for it. So he's like, we want to verify people, make sure they're not bots. But the only people who are buying this are rebuying their the verified things are like Elon stands, and plenty of bots are like, or people who are trolling or whatever are still buying these things and just making their accounts verified and spreading the same garbage and nonsense. Yeah. Then recently he did like the 600 tweet limit. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So basically,
like you can view maximum of 600 tweets.
Yeah. So all this, I mean, they're like theories about whether it's actually being implemented or not. And then on top of that, right when he took over, he basically laid off a whole bunch of people. Now, I'm sure they had some kind of like non-competes signed or something, but I don't know if he let people out of their non-competes. Like, I have no idea how that worked or what that looked like. But basically, this is all culminating in Mark Zuckerberg being like, hey, this is like ripe for the taking. Let me try to make a competitor to Twitter, which is Threads.
I think I think Elon has done we can say objectively, Elon has not done a good job at all since taking Twitter. And in my personal opinion, this may be a little bit too harsh. Because, like me, like I try not to say something that's like so harsh that I wouldn't say to the person's face in real life. It's hard not to though, because it's like not right here. But like, I guess I think Elon got in over his head, and I think he has fun like getting attention on Twitter, and he's kind of playing this persona of like, I'm the people's smart guy, and I'm in touch with the youth,
and I'm the free speech guy.
I'm free speech. I'm hip with the youth. I can fix anything, and it's like you fail Twitter.
On that note, he's basically partnered with certain countries to censor specific accounts who are doing specific anti-government like tweeting. And so I'm like, if you're supposed to be the beacon of free speech, why are you doing that? His retort is that, well, it's either we have limited Twitter here or we have no Twitter here. And so he's like, as a business, it's like a no-brainer decision. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. That's fine as a business. But your whole thing was like, oh, I'm the, free speech. Free speech as long as the government want it. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, in his defense, you're required to do whatever the government says or they shut you down.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you see the Twitter?
I'm saying, don't stake your claim.
Lie.
Don't stake your claim as like, oh, I'm the guy who cares about free speech. I'm the guy who cares about free speech. If you're that committed to, it was like his whole thing. That's why he like brought Donald Trump back. That's why he brought was Tate
Andrew
even gone?
Tate. Yeah, Tate was gone.
He brought Tate back. Like this was his whole thing. And it's like, if you care about that in principle, you say to this government, to that government, all right, stop using it or like ban us, whatever.
Yeah. Have you
And like the reality is like people are gonna find a way around that.
Did you look into the Twitter files when he released them?
No.
I thought they were really interesting. He actually proved that the FBI had like actual agent like informants at Twitter running the show behind the scenes, which I mean I love leaks. I appreciate leaks because like you can learn a lot from leaks.
Well, I've heard that there's a lot missing in those Twitter files from who was the guy, Matt Taibbi or whatever, who like leaked them. That's number one. Number two, you don't think he'd do the same thing? You don't think he'd do this?
I mean, of course. You just now said, right? He's like siding with some governments.
Yeah.
So that means he is, right? But I just like to see like what's behind the curtain.
Zuckerberg did it too. Like he is not without sin. Trust me.
I mean, you have to work with a government because if you refuse to work with a government, you're basically refusing to live. So it's that
you're
simple.
refusing to be as successful as a business as you.
No, like they might like when you have as much power as Zuckerberg, they're like, all right, you're either gonna work with us or you're gonna kill yourself somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like the big
talking about the U.S. government.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, no, I'm not. I'm talking about like other countries.
No, China, bro.
I'm talking about China. I'm talking
China
about,
do
like,
that.
Yeah, to people in their country.
You might think you actually killed yourself when China do it.
I mean, I guess he does have a Chinese wife, right? I don't know if she has citizenship. Maybe he's like.
I mean, bro.
Maybe he's like weighing the scale. Anyways,
don't get me in my conspiracy theory rabbit hole. I'm just saying, when a world power tells you to do something, there's a lot of consequences of potentially not listening, even if you're not in the country. Because they got agents.
That's true. My thing is just like that was like his main principle.
Yeah. Well, you say what you have to say to the masses, right, to get them behind you, because the people are sheep.
But yeah. Anyways, back to Threads.
Yeah. So do you have
arose out of all of this,
chaos.
All of this chaos.
Prime opportunity. Like Mark Zuckerberg been training at MMA. He clearly has learned strategic thought. You know what I'm saying? That boy's looking at that opening that Elon made, and he clearly took advantage of it.
So as a review of Threads, this is what I'll say. I like it. There are a lot of things I don't like. Right now, I still have my Twitter account, and I don't see myself using Threads over Twitter anytime, like replacing it anytime soon. If anything, Threads has just been added to like the social media.
The screen time.
Yeah, it's just been added to the screen time. And there are a couple of reasons. Threads is cool because it kind of feels like you're on the new frontier or something.
Yeah.
So that is like cool. Whether it's true or not, like it doesn't matter. That is cool. And that feeling is cool. You see a whole bunch of people like, I know that basically imports like your followers and stuff. And so people that I've been following for a long time and never post on Instagram and like barely post on Twitter if they even have one are like posting pretty regularly on Threads. And I think it's because of that feeling of like, it's new, it's cool, it's unique. Couple of reasons, at least as it exists now, why it won't be replacing my Twitter is that one, it's just like, I mean, you're going to talk about this. I know you said you don't like that there's no explore page, but there's no explore page because the whole page is basically an explore page. I keep seeing these random threads. What are they called? Like, what do we call
needles, bro?
Threads, sewing. Stitches, needles. Honestly, Threads is so it's confusing though because you have Twitter Threads, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Twitter
can see that.
threads.
Yeah.
So maybe like stitches or something. I
Stitches.
don't know. Who cares? But it's basically one big explore page. You keep seeing random threads, stitches, whatever, from random people that I don't necessarily want to be hearing anything from, looking at. Like, I see a whole bunch of nonsense. That's one thing. 2, there's no DMs. That's not necessarily a problem for me. I think, like you said, this is like an opportunity to kind of distinguish yourself as like an alternative, but also something completely different and not just like copy paste, but like meta version. That would be fine, I think, if you could curate basically your first page more. That's basically my biggest complaint, and why right now, at the very least, it won't be replacing my Twitter.
So like this is I was looking at Mark Zuckerberg's page, and people were saying like add DMs, add this, add that. I personally don't know what Thread should add, because I am honestly bored with this current social media landscape. TikTok changed the game.
You just don't follow the right people on Twitter, bro.
No. It's just TikTok changed the game.
It did.
And ever since that happened,
everyone
has been like trying to beat TikTok. And it kind of gets it's getting boring. Everything's really optimized for videos now. Like for every application now, you click on a video and you scroll and you just go down the rabbit hole of videos.
Yeah.
I like that Threads is like kind of clunky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it feels raw. Like to me, I described it as it feels like Notion plus Twitter. You know,
kinda. I can see
like
that.
it's like the minimalistic white background.
Minimalistic. It's very clean. Like,
very clean,
very
minimalistic,
yeah.
but it's clunky in a good way in the sense of like you're not meant to be watching videos there. Like when you click on a video, it's really hard to unmute the video, and like
it is. It's obnoxious.
It's very hard to
you have
unmute
to, like,
a video.
Click right on the little icon.
Right on it, and like if you click on the video, if you scroll, you go nowhere. It doesn't recommend you more videos, which I like. So I don't even know what I want to see from Threads besides like if I think it'd be really cool to change up how we use social media, the way that like Snapchat did back in the day. Like Snapchat was just like super fresh.
Yeah.
Like what? My messages are disappearing?
And stories and
that
stuff.
doesn't make sense.
Everyone has stories because of Snapchat.
Yeah.
Right?
Snapchat's like the OG in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Or even like, but I think for me, Snapchat changed the game with disappearing messages because it's so counterintuitive. At first I was like, this is dumb. Why are messages disappearing? It's like, oh, you're supposed to keep at it.
Yeah.
You know, so I hope
streaks, best friends, stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it kind of changed the way we view the whole landscape. So I hope Threads just does something new. And I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for influencers to engage with their core fan base. It feels like Threads could be like a really intimate space for sharing thoughts. You know, I hope it stays as clean as it is, and not too many things are on the page. Like I don't want like a different explore page. I don't want like, I like that there's no hashtags, for instance. Like that's cool, you know. So
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I tried. Like I was just, new frontier, right? I'm trying to be the social media guy.
Uh-huh.
So like I'm posting a lot. I've been posting hella on Threads. Follow us on Thoughtful Banter at Matthew Films on Threads. Just because I'm experimenting with, right? Yeah, like you can't, hashtags don't work. It feels like the best way to grow is to interact with other people's threads. That's what I've noticed. And it's really cool to see an account that like on Instagram has like, let's say 50 million followers. On Threads might have like 50,000.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, you got a chance to like get out there.
And like as far as visibility, like this is probably the prime time because everyone's followers are not on Threads yet,
And like if what I would do on Threads to gain more followers, which I'm going to be doing more of, is comment on everyone's thread. Like that's how you're going to gain visibility, right? Like Alex Hormozy right now, if he posts something, he might only get like 2 comments. That means like his team might literally actually see your comment.
Yeah.
So it's a great time for like outreach.
It's pretty likely.
Yeah, it's very likely. So I think Threads is a great opportunity for all of us. Yeah. And the last thing I'll add is like I think it's cool that it's part of Meta, but it's not Instagram. Yeah. Because I like to post a lot on Instagram, but it gets like too much. It gets spammy.
Yeah, I mean, even to your point about like actually being seen, Mark Cuban did like an AMA, basically like Ask Me Anything, and he responded to like almost every single question, unless it was stupid, because there were just not that many. Like he just has way less of a following
Yeah.
on Thread than he does on Instagram, Twitter, anywhere else where he could do that. Well, basically Twitter is the only place else he would do that. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, it's time for visibility, right? And like anytime you're somewhere where there's more visibility, I think that's a great opportunity for growth.
I have a question for you, because this is like off script, so you're getting authentic Matty response. You recently reposted Hasib's post about like being a slave to the algorithm, basically. And so now we're on this like new frontier, quote unquote, right? With Thoughtful Banter, with our personal accounts, and we're still trying to catch that like tract of the algorithm. I guess how, because you reposted in support, and of course we'd love Hasib to get on the podcast. Wink, wink. I know. Anyways, we'd love Hasib to get on the podcast, but you reposted it in support. So as far as like that goes, how do you think Threads is going to play into that whole thing? As far as like, you know, not being a slave to the algorithm, because right now it seems like, I mean, we're trying to do that. We're trying to get that catch from the algorithm. We're trying to get that tread. We're trying to get that tracked. You know.
I think for me, it's about doing what I want to do with the algorithm. Like, I like posting on Threads. I'm a genuine social media addict. You know, I ain't faking it for nobody. I'm me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, I enjoy posting on social, right?
Yeah.
I don't, and what I liked about his post, and the moral of the story I got from it, right? Like, from creative people are being told to put themselves on boxes for the algorithm.
Yeah.
Oh, if you like my wife, for example, Salsa, who inshallah we're going to have on the podcast soon, you know, she is a poet, she's a painter, she's a potter, she does everything, you know, but for example, she tells me like she's stressed out because it's like, oh, I don't know what to post because the algorithm wants me to show one thing.
Yeah.
But I'm a multimedia artist.
Yeah.
Why we got to niche down? Like it's kind of stupid, you know, like unless you naturally are inclined towards that, you know, so that's my point. I think just doing what, like, I like posting on Threads. I just be going off.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to, like...
Yeah, I've seen a lot of your threads.
A lot of my threads. Matthew Films. So, yeah, like, I think that's the thing. I don't think artists should, like, be forced to be in niches and stuff. It's kind of unnatural, especially for artistic people, right? Because, like, what artists are naturally people who have their own thoughts and ideas and they just want to create. So, the very nature of creativity... to impose a box upon that is kind of cap, you know?
No. Like you're limiting the freedom of creativity.
Yeah.
That makes
to
sense.
tell a creative, hey, you want to be more successful being creative? Be less creative. I'm good. I'm good, bro. But again, like, unless you love that, like, oh man, the only thing I want to see myself doing is photography. That's all I want to do. That's beautiful. But what if I want to do photography and make some cooking videos? I want to do what I want to do. And, like, you got to accept the repercussions. Like, I don't care necessarily if I don't get Instagram famous. I want to grow a small audience that likes my work. I'm not making money from this anyways.
Yeah.
I got a job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. I just want to do what I want to do.
This is not you already have a 9-to-5, basically.
Yeah. I want a second 9-to-5 where someone tells me what to do. I want to make art. I'm going to make art. In other news, way more important than Threads, Eid al-Ghadir Mubarak. Eid al-Ghadir is the occasion where Rasulullah stopped his entire envoy and told everyone to gather around. And this is like thousands upon thousands of followers and companions.
So just basically like the famous line from that speech, that sermon is Man kuntu mawla fahadha aliyyun mawla. And there's like different versions of that. It basically is for whoever I am his master, Ali is his master. And that's like basically the most important kernel to take away from that. And that's supposed to be the proof that this was Prophet Muhammad picking his successor to lead the Ummah after his death.
Yeah, it's like one of the, if you're not Shia and you're listening to this, it's like one of our, I guess, greatest pieces of evidence for believing in, like, us believing that Imam Ali is a first Khalifa after Rasulullah. And I guess the argument of that would be that, like, everyone, Sunni or Shia, knows Imam Ali was Rasulullah's friend. There is no reason for him to stop every single person
and re-announce
on a voyage in the desert when we're all tired just to give a couple hour long sermon saying, hey, my ummah, this is my friend.
Yeah.
Like we all know that's your son-in-law. That's the only person you let marry your daughter. That's like there's so many check marks Imam Ali has that no other man was given.
And we already knew his status in relation to the Prophet. Also, just to get a little nerdy for a second, before he says that like famous line, he asks the question. The Prophet asks a question. He goes, "Alastu awla bikum min anfusikum?" He said, "Do I not have more authority over you than yourself?" And the word he uses, awla, which is the same root as the word mola. And so if you just put it in that context, it's kind of difficult to say, oh, he was just saying friend, when in the sentence previous, he uses the same like root in the same, a word from the same root, and he means authority in this case, but then in this context he means friend. It's like this is one context. This is not like two different like parts of speech and two different contexts for each part. It's like, no, this is one continuous
sentence. You guys know we've talked about before. We have a new brother in the Ummah, brother Sneeko, brother Hubert. Like Sneeko. Hubert's his real name.
Is it?
Yeah, bro. Wow. He doesn't look like a Hubert.
No wonder he went by Sneeko. Jesus.
Dude, bro. Why call that his name, dog?
Hubert?
That's not his fault, bro. Come on.
Hubie. That's all Hubie.
Yeah,
Assalamu alaikum, Hubie.
I actually like that. What's good, Hubie?
Anyways.
Yeah, brother's converted. I think it's cool, right? Like his posting clips on stream about Islam. He actually has like this. It seems like a good sheikh who's like been on YouTube for a minute now.
Yeah.
He had it like on the live stream.
Uthman or something.
I think so. He looks like one of those like really really friendly brothers. You know, Sneeko like did his shahada with him, and like he's like, "How's my Arabic?" I just thought like it's really wholesome and sweet to see like. I feel like a really genuine change from Sneeko. And it's cool to see his evolution because, again, for those of you who've been following Sneeko as long as I have, like, you've seen, like, the hardcore, edgy atheist era, and then just, like, the edgy, like, nihilistic and, era.
Like, intellectual.
Intellectual debate era. And I think it's really cool. Like, inshallah, this is, like, I pray that's, like, a permanent change for him. Because you can see, like, how Islam puts people at peace. Like and like again, like I don't know him, but just from me like watching like a couple streaming clips, like his energy seems like a little bit calmed down. Like he seems like a little bit more at peace. Like I remember just the old Sneeko, just like a lot of rage, a lot of anger, you know. Yeah. But like I think the new Sneeko, I don't know, see more peacefulness.
Remember his like 13, 14, 15-year-old days. Is he younger than us?
No, he's like a year older.
He might be like a little older than us.
Yeah. But I remember those videos.
He's like a year or something. Like he's not a lot older than us. Yeah. But yeah, he was like playing Call of Duty and he was like 13, 14 in his room, like raging about how God isn't real. And do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I've literally seen every single one of his videos. I actually remember. You know what's funny to me that he's converted to Islam, but in his history, like he's had a lot of times where he was like in the past. Of course, I'm not faulting him for it now, but I'm just noticing like in his evolution. Before converting to Islam, there's a lot of times in his content creation timeline where he's been like going at Muslims or like kind of like mocking Islam a bit. I just think it's really funny how like Allah brings people to him.
Yeah.
Kind of goes hard.
And honestly, again, like he's probably to his detriment lived a lot of his life in front of people online. And so you kind of see like he went from atheist to like edgelord atheist to like agnostic nihilist, edgy agnostic nihilist, and then like switch into like the red pill, and then through the red pill like seem to be getting some more Islam exposure, I guess, which is interesting. Which is interesting. But then just to see it like basically come full circle is very interesting.
And I think it's really funny how people are finding Islam because partially due to like how much some ideas are currently being pushed in the West. I think it's like this pendulum swing of society, right? We're seeing some forces push some ideas currently so hard in one direction that people are springing back the other way like a rubber band. You know, I think that's like kind of a natural occurrence in society. You know, when there's a big push one way, people push the opposite way.
Yeah.
So like the liberalism. That is the force right now in America that's like pushing people one way so hard, and it's making a lot of people who wouldn't be interested in being like conservative or Muslim or like traditional, whatever traditional means, making a lot of people who wouldn't even be interested in those ideas super hardcore these things, just because the liberals have gone so hard at pushing their agenda like down people's throats that people are like, nah, I'm gonna be the polar opposite. And it's funny, like if they just let people kind of live their lives more and be like less pushy about their beliefs, they wouldn't have so many people pushing back hard.
I mean, not to push back on you, like you're right. I think you are right.
They'll push back, but
what any liberal or any, I'm not going to say like liberal in the like the philosophical liberal, like because that's similar, but it has different. Anyways, what people call liberals today, as far as like politically, right, like super left wing people, liberals, what they'd say is, well, this is something that's good to be forced down your throat because it's the freedom of it's allowing people to express their freedom. For example, if I were to give you an analogy that they might use, it's like, would you say that, oh, we shouldn't force people to accept the end of slavery because it's too radical? No, you say we want these people to be these people deserve freedom. Who cares if we're shoving it down your throat? You know, like that's what you say. So that's like what kind of frustrates me sometimes in the debates between Muslims and liberals is that not just Muslims, conservatives, liberals, Muslims, liberals, anyone who's like anti some liberal ideas, is that they never start at the right point. Right? They start talking, they start saying, oh, well, you're pushing LGBTQ agenda down my throat, for example. And it's like, the liberals like, good. You know, like, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Like, you're pushing women's rights down my throat. Good. You know, like, you guys just end up talking past each other because you're not even focusing on the right issue. You have to go way, way back, or you have to change the arena in which the discussion is being had. Right? And that's kind of where a scholar was talking about this, but this is like the downfall of like Jordan Peterson and Matt Walsh, because if you try to like force these kind of conversations about like abortion, about transitions and stuff like that into these frameworks, you're just gonna come out with like absurd conclusions, right? You come out with absurd conclusions like, oh, well, a 2-day-old zygote is a person, and it's like, anyone who's listening to that is like, what? A 2-day-old zygote is a person? Or like, oh, homosexuality is bad and wrong because it doesn't occur in nature. And it's like, well, yes, it does. It does occur in nature. Yeah. It does occur in nature. And then your whole argument is like crumbled, right?
Mm-hmm. So you're saying like have a proper frame for your argument.
Yeah.
You know,
like,
we debate them through the material lens. You know, like looking at homosexuality through like, oh, it's not in nature. It's like, well, if that's your argument, then you've basically concluded that you're wrong. Because you can find any species of animals pretty much conducting homosexual behavior.
Also, there's plenty of things we do that's not natural.
Exactly. Yeah, it's appeal to nature fallacy, right? It doesn't make sense.
And you just end up looking goofy. Or at least I think they look goofy.
I think so, too. I think what people forget always is if you have morals based on religion, then you should just say, I do this because I believe my Lord has told me to. It's that simple.
And then if you want to debate that, then you go all the way back to like first principles, basically. Yeah. Right? And then that's where it starts.
Yeah. And I think I think people are scared of saying that because maybe they don't feel like they don't have enough conviction to say like, hey, I just believe God told me to do this. But I feel like it's a great framework because there's no debating it. I mean, then you have to prove to me through my text that I'm misinterpreting my Lord's commands. You know what I'm saying?
Or you could even go back to like existence of God and stuff like that. But like that's a really long discussion.
It's a really long discussion, and you're not going to prove me wrong.
Like no one wants it.
At the end of the day, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. You're not going to be able to prove to me that God didn't exist. I have way more reason to believe that there's some sort of being in charge of the universe, whether it's called Allah or God or whatever. There's some sort of being that made everything. You look goofy, bro. Out of nothing, please, bro. The world makes too much sense, bro. Sorry, don't get me canceled, Sane. Don't get me canceled, Sane.
No, but back to your point, it makes it easier to kind of like transcend the debate, basically. Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, I have this like piece in my head that I'm working on that goes something like, the enemy of your enemy is not your friend, and it's basically kind of a letter to Muslims who are like basically like what do they call it? Linking arms with like super conservative, super right wing, like right wingers on specific issues. And not to say that you shouldn't agree, you shouldn't protest an issue just because there are other people that you don't like protesting that same issue. But my problem is kind of like it seems like we almost adopt the lenses through which these things are discussed from conservatives. And that's where my issue lies.
You know, it's funny because the same Muslims who link arms with conservatives because they share some values are the same people who won't lock arms with like the LGBTQ because they'll say free Palestine. Mm-hmm. You know, like I noticed actually growing up, I used to go to a lot of protests, and I noticed the change when a lot of the free Palestine protests or anti-war protests for the Middle East and whatnot. I noticed when the LGBTQ crowd like started putting themselves there. You know, and it was like free Palestine, and then I'd hear, and free to all of our gay brothers and sisters. And it was like, and the Muslims kind of like a lot of the Muslims from like the older generations like fizzled out because they're like, well, I'm about free Palestine, but you're joining my protests, but you're also kind of making me co-sign your values. I was just here to protest about Palestine. You're protesting about something else. But those same people will also link arms with conservatives. I just think it's interesting.
You will be hard pressed to get them to say free Palestine. Yeah, generally speaking.
Free guns.
Generally speaking.
Ain't free no Palestine.
Type beat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and then like some of these Muslim news agencies, bro, like we just adopt the same lines, super sensationalist. It just leaves it, for me, like as a Muslim Shia watching that, it just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. Even when they're right on the issue, it's like,
well, what do you want them to do then? They're right on the issue, but you don't like what about it? That they're just using conservative lines.
Yeah. I mean, you can. It's the like framework. It's the lens through which these things are being discussed that I have the issue with. The conclusion is fine, right?
Why does it matter?
Why does it matter?
If the conclusion is fine, why does it matter the framework and lens?
The foundation of an idea doesn't matter.
Is that is the lens the foundation of an idea? So like, why does it like? But if my outcome is the same, right? Like, what is the? Can you explain to me like the negatives?
I mean, we kind of just discussed it. If the input is homosexuality is not natural, and the output is therefore homosexual acts are wrong, then all someone has to say to debunk that is, well, homosexuality isn't unnatural, and then your whole argument is disappeared. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
That's why it matters.
So it matters because that's the foundation upon everything else.
Yeah.
So when you have like a weak foundation, your dome gonna crumble.
Mm-hmm. Think about like the gym.
Yeah, I guess it's like I'm trying to think of a gym metaphor for this. I think it's like, all right, you want to train legs, you want to get big legs, you squat, but instead of barbell squatting, you only do Smith machine. You're using a Smith machine your whole life, you're not gonna have a strong core. Mm-hmm. Like your stabilization muscles are not going to be strong. If that's all you do, right?
And then you're going to suffer more because of that.
Yeah, you might injure yourself later.
Or like form, for example.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of more advanced lifters, they kind of like break at the form rules. They're not they know like the limits of their bodies, but they've learned that through doing what's proper, because that foundation is right. Then they're able to kind of like tweak things and experiment and find what may work for this body or this body or this body. But if you just start off and your form is terrible, you're gonna have a rack of injuries before you even get to the point where you're able to do that. You know?
Yeah.
So that's like my issue.
I see. I think you're always insightful to speak to. I think people. I'll say I've been saying this a lot to you recently. I haven't said it on the podcast. Mm-hmm. I really struggle with this. People like I grew up very rigid in my thinking. Like I really knew what was right and wrong, like clearly to me, and like I was really arrogant in the sense of like I'd be debating it up with like my peers. I remember like growing up, I was debating with my neighbors about God and stuff. Like I got one guy to like admit there's God, like, and I was like 8 or 12 or whatever, right? You know, because growing up in a religious household, and I still have my convictions about my ideas, but I also see the world in a lot of grays where I used to see black and whites.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to think like that in a world where people seem to only care about very strong opinions. And especially like people you respect having like even like really strong black or white opinions. And I don't know if I'm just like seeing more or if I'm just like maybe I'm just like weaker spiritually. Like maybe I've allowed like the dunya to like cloud my judgment. But I just see like gray areas, you know, like, and I just don't see how other people don't also see gray areas. Abortion, for example, right?
Beautiful example.
Abortion is, and my opinions of abortion have changed. I had some logic fallacies. When I was younger, I used to say, oh, I think abortion should be legal because no matter what, people will get abortions. So that will hurt the woman and the baby. So like 2 lives being lost instead of 1. Now, if you look at the statistics of abortion, right? I don't have them right in front of me, but I looked into them recently. The vast majority of abortions are not done because a woman was sexually assaulted, are not done because the woman would just be in like absolute poverty. They're done because the woman doesn't want to have a kid and she doesn't have a partner.
That doesn't change your first point.
It just makes me think like, and I don't know, right? I think what the law should be about abortion, like if you're actually asking me, I think abortion should be viewed at legally the way it's viewed Islamically, which is it's not allowed or not allowed, it's contextual. Like there has to be some context. Like to say that for the government to say women should have abortion or not have abortion is goofy. Why is it black or white? Why isn't there some gray area? Because at this rate, and again, like I was someone growing up who I just thought like abortion just should be allowed, but we've had something like 80 million abortions this year. That's a lot of abortions. That's a lot of. Try not to get canceled here. That's a lot, and like if you look at the statistics, it just shows that a lot of abortions are being had because of irresponsible conduct. That's wild to just kill babies left and right, and who knows when the baby's a baby, but at some point, it's a baby, and we know like a lot of times there's if 80 million abortions are happening. Let me look that up first. Let me see how many abortions happen.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. If a high number of abortions.
High number. I don't want to be like misquoted like and be wrong. But let's if it's up in the millions, we got to assume at least some of them are babies. I agree that maybe 2 days in being pregnant, that's not a baby. But 3 months in, 6 months in, people are having abortions and just not because I'm in school. All right, the baby didn't ask to be here, bro.
So sorry to interrupt you. It's just that like the whole abortion debate based on personhood is just you're never gonna get anywhere. The abortion debate based on
personhood makes no bloody sense, brother.
But the I'm saying the debate based on personhood, you're just not like philosophers have been going back and forth about this. There's actually an interesting, it's like a famous paper on. Abortion and it's a defense, I guess, against or it's against abortion. It's anti-abortion, this paper, and basically it kind of sidesteps the question of personhood and argues something else. It talks about it's called the flow of the future like ours. There we go. So he argues that basically like these things have a right to a future like ours, and you can the fact that you can argue for a future life like ours on something other than humanness or personhood, like you could apply this to aliens, for example, means that it could be applied to fetuses as well. So it's interesting. His name is Don Marquis. If anyone's interested in reading that, it's like a, I guess, secular defense or anti-abortion paper. But take the issue of abortion, for example. Again, once we get bogged down in like these frameworks of like, oh well, this is when it becomes a person versus that's when it becomes a person, it just becomes super easy for our arguments to fall apart. And the same thing with homosexuality. It becomes super easy for our arguments to fall apart. There are two things. Let me take homosexuality as an example, and let me give you an example of what I mean by like transcending the debate. Right? You say homosexuality. Instead of us saying, oh, well, it's not natural. Oh, depopulation is going to happen. Oh, this, oh, that. Because for all of these things, we know there are responses, right? We address two issues. One, kind of America has made a big thing of making everything an identity, right? So my sexual orientation is an identity, my race is an identity, my ethnicity is an identity. All these different things become like identicized, right? Once we move away from that, it becomes a lot easier to deal with, right? So this is not, I am a homosexual, I am a man who has same-sex attractions. This is not a part of me, right? This is not something that's like a part of my very being and my very identity. I'm a man. I have same-sex attraction. My identity is a creature of God in submission to God, trying to get closer to God. God says I shouldn't do this if I want to get closer to him. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. It's that simple. And it avoids, we don't have to get into, oh, it's not natural. Oh, depopulation is going to occur. Because it doesn't matter. Even if none of that was true. If this was still the same legislation, this is the same action I would take. Because the trap or the problem you fall into is like, okay, once these things are eliminated, then what's your objection? What's your objection?
Yeah.
Why are you still against this? And it's like, because it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter. Is it a person at 2 days? Is it not a person? Is it a person at 3 months? Is it not? Who cares? It doesn't matter. I am a person. I am a slave of God in submission to God who wants to get closer to God. I need to do these things to get closer to God. Whether it's a person or not, I'm going to do these things to get closer to God. And then you stop worrying about all this other nonsense. All this other stuff, it becomes irrelevant.
It's facts.
So, yeah, that's
you had to sidestep it. Like you sidestepped all the BS, all the noise around it all, and it makes it very simple for people who believe in God. All right, and I think the only issue is like, listen, we share a society with people with different faiths and religion. And that's why I think like we live in America. I'm not asking for like Sharia law to be imposed on the U.S. government. Like that's not something I want. I don't think that's just because we're not all Muslim. It's if I woke up tomorrow and I learned that 95% of all Americans are Muslims, maybe that will make sense. You know, like, hey guys, like at this point, this is a Muslim country. We can call it church or state, whatever, church and mosque, like mosque and state. Sorry, but I'm like, listen, like the whole society is on the same page. It makes sense for us to share common like religious laws. We don't. So I'm not I hope listeners here aren't thinking like that's what we're necessarily advocating for. But we're talking more about like cultural, like social ways of viewing these problems, right? That's like in terms of like laws now, and this is where I feel like I have a gray area with other Muslims. I think a lot of Muslims say, okay, I have these strong beliefs. I want my laws to reflect my beliefs of the country I live in. This is like a common thing. Oh, I have these thoughts about homosexuality or abortion, whatever. I think the laws of the country I'm in should reflect that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't. That's something that I'm really conflicted on. Because on one hand, it's like, well, don't you believe in what's right? Yes, I do. Okay, then stand up for it, bro. Stand up for your beliefs. But I'm like, my beliefs also impact other people. I don't think that if I believe drinking is wrong, I'm not gonna slap a drink out of some non-Muslim guy's hand. Even a Muslim guy's hand if I don't know him. Like he's sinning in his corner. I can't find anywhere in my Islam that tells me go find the sinner and stop him from sinning. That's not my role, right? My role is to stay away from what's prohibited and enjoy what's halal, and it's that simple. And I think this is actually the problem where Muslims, like, I don't think Muslims even know what to do with this, right? Because you see, like, implementations of, like, Islamic societies where, like, all right, we're all on the same page, right? Let's make laws. But people run into issues because one generation of people, like, look at Iran's a perfect example. The previous generation was really, really hyped up about Islam. Like, people, it was at a point people like, yes, we want it. This generation, not so much as a previous generation. There's a lot of pushback.
Doing Islamic governance, you run into a lot of issues, right? And so because the canon is silent. Okay, the Prophet wasn't in power for a long time, right? Imam Ali was in power for even shorter amount of time. Imam Hassan was in power for a short amount of time, and then basically they were never in power again. As far as like affecting the, like having the sanction from the community, not by God obviously, but from the community power to like alter laws and alter things and stuff like that. Of course, they had influence and power in their own spheres and stuff like that, and of course they were sanctioned by God. That's a different discussion though. But as far as like running a country or running a city or something Islamically, there's not a lot that we have to draw from in the canon. You like saying the canon, huh? It's a canon event. Anyway, in our canonical sources. And so on top of that, even if there was some kind of like comprehensive blueprint written out then, there are still issues that we run into now that are new. Easy one is like crypto. Like,
yeah,
what do you do with crypto? Islamically, what do you do with crypto?
Yeah.
Can you even say there's like an Islamic solution to that? Transgender, like this is an issue that, like as far as surgery and like transitioning and stuff like this is like what in the world?
Yeah, brand new issues.
Yeah, these are like brand new issues. Stuff like what is it called? Like patent law, copyright, like again. What do you do as an Islamic country as far as like saying, how do you draw a specific Islamic conclusion that you can say is like
with certainty
with certainty is like sourced from the canon? So like you run into all these kind of like issues, right? And so there are like things that people can do, like scholars, for example, there are ideas and concepts and principles that they use to kind of fill in where there are these gaps, but they're not perfect. And so, for example, if you are the leader of a Muslim country and you're like, traffic in this one area of the city is awful. It's like really bad. And it's affecting the productivity of our citizens. But in this whole stretch of that you want to build a new highway, for example, there's like a rack of houses. And like all of them are like, no, we don't want to sell our houses to you. Is there eminent domain in Islam?
I don't know.
You know, do I have the right as like the governor to just give them money, compensate them?
I would guess not.
Compensate them and then just bulldoze their house, like hey, here's your money. You got X amount of days to leave, or else you're getting bulldozed. Like, do I have that right? We literally have.
We don't know. Aren't there like the rights of like your neighbors and whatnot? Like,
I mean, you can like extrapolate things, but there's no like,
there's no text saying specifically, hey, in this case,
or this is how you have to be in with these kind of things, or that kind of thing. Even highways itself is like a very like. They weren't making highways during the Prophet's time.
But maybe I would just argue against that. And I would just argue against that. There are principles though that we have that like our scholars are using to make like informed opinions, informed like scholarly opinions about what we should do. And I think like that might be.
But can you say that's Islam? That's the question. That becomes a question.
Can you say that is Islam?
No.
Can I say that it's Islamic?
Because perhaps you use a principle. I say okay, well it's better for everyone. So based on this, it being better for everyone, like the entire community, the entire ummah, the entire country, based on that principle, it's called maslaha. I'm going to say that we have the right to use eminent domain. And then you say, well, there's haqq nas.
Like the right of
the people,
the individual, right?
Yeah, the right of the people. Like, what do you? This is their property. These are their homes. How are you gonna do that? These are two principles, and they're being applied in like to bring up two opposite verdicts, basically opposite conclusions. I forgot why I even mentioned like what
about Islamic society. I don't think either Hussein and I are claiming to know what should be done. I will say this, however, I think cultural soft power is really important. And I think like true change in society happens through the culture, like through the soft power. Because you can have laws, right? You can have beliefs in something being legal or not. But what people do is a very different thing. And people don't listen to the law. People listen to the culture. You know, people smoke weed way before it's legal. Because that's a culture. People
jaywalk all the time.
People jaywalk all the time, including myself, every day when I can. You know what I'm saying? So it's really about the culture. And I think a lot of times we try to create change through the law. But I think what's more important, and it's something as we as Muslims forget, is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, first made his change through culture. People became Muslim because they knew this man for 20 years. And even after he had claimed that he had made the announcement publicly that he was a prophet from God to lead them, and people called him a liar, and people called him crazy, those same people came to him and said, Ya Rasulullah, I trust you more than anybody. I don't believe you're a prophet, but can you hold on to my wealth for me? I'm going away on a trip. Can you hold on to my gold? Because of his character. And that's a cultural change. And those are the kind of things like that bring people in.
Yeah,
his Islam was like manifested through his actions. Rasulullah wasn't saying, we gotta vote and make all the laws for everyone here.
Yeah.
What I'm saying right now. No, his actions showed who he was, and people were brought to that light because his character manifested that.
When he announced his prophethood, like announced, one of the first questions he asked the people that were gathered in front of him, he said, if I told you that there was an army behind these mountains, you can't see. They can't see what's behind though. If I told you there was an army here, would you believe me? And they said, we believe in the veracity of like your speech so much. We believe in the truth that you speak so much because you've never lied to us. We believe in your character so much. Of course we believe you.
SubhanAllah.
Of course we believe you. I can't see anything. I can't see anything. I don't even believe in you as a prophet of God. I don't believe in you in anything right now. You're just a dude to me. I can't see. And yet, if you told me that there was an army, I'd go get myself and put on my armor. You know, like that's how certain I'd be that you were speaking the truth. Yeah. That's great. Can you say that about anyone in your life?
I know if I said that, people are like Mac tripping. You know, certainly not me. Yeah, not me.
Like, yeah. Bro, at the border of Canada, there's an army just waiting to come over. If someone said that to you, I'd like look me dead in my eyes and said that to me, I'd be like,
"You're crazy.
What are you talking about, bro?
Show me. Where's it posted?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, bro, it's not posted anywhere. Take my word for it. I'm good.
I'm so good.
I'm so good. Yeah. I just think that's an important point.
No, it is, and I think we should probably be more focused on that. And I think we miss the boat as Muslims. We get so bogged down in being like, oh, well, I want to be a part of this system and change it from the inside. And I want to be a part of that system and change it from the inside. And, you know, Ali ibn Yaqtin, like the Imam told him to be a part of this court. And, you know, he was working for this Shia the whole time. Like we get obsessed with these ideas and we fly like to like advanced level stuff before taking the baby steps. And the baby steps is building that soft power, building that culture, investing in schools, investing in like businesses, building our Islamic community, making sure that we're all like brothers, you know, that making sure that we're manifesting the community where if I need something from you, I reach into your pocket, take it, and you don't blink an eye. If you have it to give, you don't blink an eye. You know? It's like we're so far away from having Ali ibn Yaqtin and like the government, bro. Relax.
Define what that means for people.
Ali ibn Yaqtin was a companion of Imam Kalim, I believe. And basically he had a job in the government, in the caliphate, and he came to the Imam and was like, I feel really conflicted because these dudes are wildin'. What do I do? And basically the Imam told him to stay there and then act as an agent for the Shia in like secret. And so that's what like everyone focuses on, you know.
Yeah. When there's other hadith of the Imams telling companions don't work in the government.
Yeah, there are.
And I'm not going to go into explanations because
like I think it might be like the same hadith. I'm not sure. But there's a camel trader who rents out his camels basically. And one of the people he rents his camels out to was the Khalifa, and this is like a Shia guy, and he asked Imam the same question, and Imam's like, "Bro, you gotta stop that, bro. Your money not good. Your money not good. So you see, there's two different, like to your point, there's two different like responses to
different people.
Yeah, and everyone wants to think they're Ali ibn Yaqtin, but like, no, bro, you're probably not.
You're not him.
You're probably not.
To that point of like, it makes me emotional thinking about that. Like, that's the hard truth that we don't want to look at in the mirror. It just makes me so emotional, bro. Cause, oh my God, mama. That's the stuff that we don't want to like do, because that's like the hard work to put in. But that's like where social change comes from. Like that's, to me, like that's real truth, because you can talk a big talk, you can even know about Islam and have the Quran memorized, but the truth is in your actions and your interactions with other people. Like that's where people see your Islam, because like there's a way of being that Islam wants us to be like, you know. And like you see even people who become Muslim or aren't Muslim, but they have that way of being that it's like that godliness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also like, I think when we look at leaders like Malcolm X, you know, Shaheed Malcolm, you know, like he was kind of like one of those people. And like I think we ask like why there isn't another Malcolm X, and we have like great speakers now. But I think that part of it is because it's hard to find someone who does that kind of work, who's that involved with the community, like that, boots on the ground with people, knowing people. And that's what gives him his charisma. Like Malcolm X's charisma or Dr. King's charisma wasn't from talking in the mirror and like taking speech classes. It was because they wrestled with their own faith and they're willing to die for a cause, and they really cared about people, and they were doing this for people, and people knew them. Like they were with those people, knowing them and doing work for them, and they were kind and like generous and just people. And Malcolm X, even before he was like, when he was still with the Nation of Islam and he literally believed white people were the devil, he was still very kind to white people who he thought was the devil. Like you see in interviews, you know, like he'd be chatting it up.
Yeah, very
cordial and like friendly and charismatic. Like he was so charismatic, he might convince me that I was the devil at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But just to, I guess, circle back to my point as far as like, you know, us Muslims just completely missing the boat. A good example is like this public school stuff, like the sexual education stuff, and like the teaching of LGBTQ and stuff like that. Like we should have been protesting, or not even protesting. We should have not been putting our kids in school way before this. Like, you're late to the party, buddy. Now you're talking about homeschooling. Now you're talking about building this initiative, that initiative. Better late than never. But brother, like we should have been investing in this from the beginning.
Education.
And it's because we don't have an idea of how important a teacher is to you. The reason a teacher has so many rights in Sahifa Sajadiyya, right, is because this person is literally, I'm stealing this from my mother, just by the way, this person is literally imprinting themselves onto your child, right? They're imprinting that knowledge. And it's not just like the knowledge. People are like, oh, well, if it's the same knowledge, then why should we care, right? But we understand, again, I'm stealing this from someone else, a scholar. We understand that there's a difference in the quality of information that I get from a hypocrite versus someone who is like truthful to their actions. If there's a extremely overweight person telling me not to be overweight,
yeah,
right, I'm gonna look at him like, what are you talking about?
You're not gonna listen to it.
I'm not gonna listen to it.
Yeah, you see like an obese 400-pound dude is like, bro, you just gotta be active.
Yeah, and if there's a person that I know lives that kind of lifestyle and tells me the exact same advice, the exact same knowledge, right, the exact same thing, I'm going to interpret it and take it very differently. Now that's an extreme example to give you like an understanding of what I'm trying to say, which is that where your knowledge, where your information comes from matters as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we're like we've for years been just putting our children in the hands of people whose values we don't always share. And everyone has an experience in school where they're like, oh, that one teacher I remember. Right?
Yeah.
Like I remember that one teacher because they did XYZ and they thought XYZ and I learned so much from them. I felt like I was cared for by that teacher. You don't think these things matter?
And especially like growing up, you probably spend most of your time in school.
In school.
There's so much wrong with public school. I mean, you just look at the school shootings, man, and it's like, I don't know why I'm not claiming to know why school shootings are happening, but all I do know is something really messed up is happening in these public schools because it's very unnatural for so many kids to come out of these schools way too many kids that come out of these schools,
But
take guns to school, be like,
but even
I'm so
before
traumatized from this. I know. But I'm just saying, like, I'm so traumatized by this. I want to kill as many kids as possible. Something dark is happening.
Even before that, do you know how many kids and youth have been lost in public school? Muslim kids.
I mean, yeah.
Like, if there's like the number, we're worried about LGBTQ. The number one, like, like the number one destroyer of faith is probably public school.
Public school. Public school is not,
at least here.
Public school is this is a rabbit hole. I mean, public school for so many reasons is terrible. For one, like we were talking earlier about the base of things, Matt, like the base of ideas. The sole purpose for public school is a couple things: to babysit kids while parents are in the workforce, because men and women, like when women were required to work as well, it's like, all right, who's going to take care of these kids? We need public school. And the second thing is to create productive workers for factories. That is not an environment you want your kid to be in. Unless you want your kid to be a literal drone NPC, that's all public school is going to do. And like, these kids from all different places, all different backgrounds, get thrown into the school together, where the teachers don't get paid enough to care, where they read off information and the kids are ranked on their value based off memorizing this information that they're not going to apply and use. And there's no morality enforced. Nothing matters. There's no godliness in the teaching. And you hear from public schoolers, like, you know, Hussein and I growing up, we're from public schoolers like, oh, bro, like, you don't get roasted enough. Like just the culture of it is like very toxic. We're playing catch up on so many levels, and I don't know what it is that makes us behind. What is it, bro?
I mean, there's a lot of things. Falling trap to the
white man's game.
Falling into the white man's game, yeah. The trap of capitalism, the rat race. You know, yeah, pursuing things without knowledge, pursuing things without foresight, pursuing things for other than the sake of God, making decisions based on our social status, like a whole bunch of stuff, like keeping up with the Joneses, like so many different things.
You know, like
and then we like go through these things like rote motion, rote memorized patterns, right? We go through these actions blind to all of this stuff, and then we see the output, and then we're like, oh, what? You know, my child left Islam, atheist, drinking, doing all these things, and I'm like, oh my God, let me try to no, bro. No,
too late.
You spent all your life living like an idiot. And now you're worried about the outcome. Hold on, I need to pull up the surah. Al-Hakum wa-Takathur. Competition and worldly increase diverts you until you meet your graves. No, then you are going to know. Then you are going to know. If you only knew with knowledge of certainty, you would surely see the hellfire. Then, on that day, you will surely see it with the eye of certainty. That's a prophecy, bro.
SubhanAllah.
Then you will surely be asked on that day about the pleasure of this world, the pleasure of the dunya. You're takathur, bro. You're just constant like, gimme.
Yeah. Astaghfirullah.
We pay the price, bro, and we don't even have to get to there to see it.
Yeah,
we see it here.
Do you think? Makes me think. Maybe I feel like the only model to be successful then, in this life and the next, and I think Allah wants us to be successful in this life. He just doesn't want us to compromise. Like this world we're supposed to be is to slingshot us to higher in the afterlife. That's the point, right? It's like a game in that sense. I mean, we have to build like these, you know, people take it to the extreme. I think like, so money's bad, accomplishment is bad. It's like, no, brother, build it for God. Build it for God. Let's build a business and somehow design this business legally in a way that 10% of all your profit goes to the masjid, or goes to the community center, or goes to some kind of fund like funding the widows in the community who don't have enough money to pay their rent or something.
Yeah. Again, this I mean, we mentioned it in our podcast with Mustafa as well. Like, this is not me saying that. Like, obviously, you still have to live in this world, right? And being a monk and being like asceticism is not something that is condoned either.
Yeah,
we have to be with the people. We have to be amongst our community. I told this story to someone. I told this hadith to someone, and I might have said it. Did I say it on the podcast last time about the prophet? When the woman comes to the prophet and she's like, my husband is like not having relations with me and he's not taking care of his family.
No, say it. I love this hadith.
Yeah.
No, I want to say
and basically the prophet asks why, and she's like, well, he's sworn off this world. He's like a monk, like he's practicing his.
Well, start over for people.
You start over.
Thank you. You can tell much I want to say. I love this hadith because it's referenced in the book Marriage and Morals by Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi. May Allah be pleased with him. He's amazing. That book is fire, and that basically the hadith goes. I'm paraphrasing. May Allah forgive me if I get anything wrong. A woman comes to Rasulullah and basically tells him like straight up, my husband isn't laying with me in bed, and Rasulullah is like visibly upset. He's like, why? And she says, well, he's saying like his like divorce worldly pleasures, and he's making salat. He's just praying nafila in the house. And the description, to my recollection of the hadith, is his face gets red with anger, and he leaves his home immediately holding like his shoes to like supposedly like beat the man.
I think it was like he was in such a rush to
get to him
that he didn't even put on his shoes.
Yeah. And like he basically just barges in like the wife is there, obviously, like the wife is already still like, he just barges in the house, and he's like, stop that. Like, you're not better than me. I enjoy these worldly pleasures with my spouse. I'm the prophet of God.
Do you think you're better than me?
You're not better than me. Out on?
No. Yeah. Download Threads. Follow us on there. Add it to your social media.
Yeah. Add it to your screen time if you can handle it. Thank you for supporting us to episode 40 right now of the Thoughtful Banter podcast. It's been a pleasure. Inshallah, we keep going forward. But if not, just keep us in your du'as, inshallah, and pray that we get on the straight path and we stay there.
We out. Peace.